Beneath the western part of Africa was a majestic kingdom known as Fiji. This kingdom was renowned for its enormous, two-headed python that served as its sacred protector in addition to its lush landscapes and abundant crops. All people held this sacred python, called Tata, in high regard and thought it had amazing abilities that would guarantee Fiji's wealth and well-being. The python lived in a secluded part of the kingdom, deep within a mystical forest where ancient trees whispered secrets of old. It was said that Tata had the ability to bring rain during droughts, heal the sick, and ensure bountiful harvests. In return, the people of Fiji had to perform certain rituals and offer tributes to honor and appease the sacred guardian. King Obus ruled for many decades. He was a just and fair ruler, beloved by his people. King Obus understood the importance of tradition and the role of Tata in maintaining the balance and prosperity of the kingdom. Under his rule, every year during the Festival of Harvest, he led his people in a grand ceremony to honor the sacred python. Offerings of yams, palm wine, and kola nuts were made, and the air was filled with the rhythm of drums and the melodious tunes of flutes. King Obus's reign was marked by numerous acts of kindness and wisdom. He often traveled through his kingdom, listening to his people's concerns and offering sage advice. His bond with the sacred python was strong, and he ensured that the traditions were followed meticulously. At one time, a severe drought threatened the kingdom. The fields dried up, and the rivers dwindled. The people grew anxious, and King Obus decided to seek the aid of Tata. He ventured deep into the forest with the high priestess Neka, and together they performed an elaborate ritual. As they chanted and offered their gifts, the skies began to darken, and rain fell, reviving the parched land. The people rejoiced, and King Obus' wisdom was praised. However, this time was different. As King Obus and Neka were about to leave, the sacred python emerged from the shadows, its two heads towering above them. The air crackled with an ethereal energy as the python spoke, its voices resonating like a chorus of ancient wisdom.
The great Tata.
King Obus greeted, bowing deeply.
We are grateful for your blessings.
King Obus.
The python replied,
You have honored the old ways, and for that, your kingdom has thrived. But know this, the bond between our worlds is delicate. Your son must understand the importance of this balance.
I will ensure that he does.
King Obus promised.
He will honor you as I have.
The python's eyes glowed softly.
See that he does, for the fate of this kingdom depends on it.
As the years went by, King Obus grew old and frail. He continued to rule with a steady hand, but he knew his time was coming to an end. On his deathbed, he called for his son, Prince Obina, and entrusted him with the throne.
My son.
King Obus whispered,
The prosperity of our kingdom depends on our respect for the great python, Tata. Never forsake the old ways.
Prince Obina nodded, but in his heart, he harbored different ambitions. He believed that the kingdom needed to move away from old superstitions and embrace progress and modernization. After King Obus passed away, Prince Obina was crowned king in a grand ceremony. Unlike his father, King Obina was determined to make his mark by distancing the kingdom from what he considered outdated practices. He issued a decree banning all rituals associated with Tata. Anyone caught making offerings or even approaching the sacred forest would be severely punished. Neka, the high priestess, and other elders tried to reason with the new king, but he refused to listen.
We must look to the future,
he declared.
These superstitions hold us back.
Initially, the kingdom seemed to flourish under Obina's rule. However, it wasn't long before things took a turn for the worse. The skies grew barren, and the rains ceased to fall. The rivers dried up, and the once fertile lands turned arid. Crops failed, and famine spread across the kingdom. The people began to murmur that the king's actions had angered the sacred python Tata. Amara, a young woman who believed in the old ways, noticed the suffering of her people and decided to take matters into her own hands. She secretly visited the sacred forest, bringing offerings to the python, despite the king's decree. However, her actions were discovered, and she was brought before the king. King Obina was furious when he learned of Amara's defiance.
You dare to go against my decree.
He thundered. Amara stood her ground, her voice steady.
Your Majesty, Tata has protected us for generations. We must honor the old ways or face the consequences.
Despite her plea, King Obina ordered her punishment. The people watched in horror as Amara was taken away, their hope dwindling with each passing day. As the situation grew dire, even King Obina could not ignore the cries of his suffering people. The council, led by the wise Okachukwu, urged the king to reconsider.
Your father knew the importance of our traditions. We must seek forgiveness from the great python Tata.
King Obina, however, remained obstinate. He refused to believe that the kingdom's misfortune was a result of his actions. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but still the king did not relent. The drought persisted, and the kingdom's situation worsened. In secret, the elders held meetings to discuss the dire state of affairs and to find ways to convince the king. These secret gatherings were filled with heated debates and conflicting opinions. One elder, Chitty, suggested that the only way to save their families and the kingdom was to assassinate the king. This idea caused a rift among the elders, dividing them into two groups. One group, led by Chitty, believed in the drastic measure, while the other, led by the elder Nkem, sought a more diplomatic solution. Nkem, a man of wisdom and patience, continued to advocate for peaceful persuasion. He believed that violence would only bring more suffering to their already troubled kingdom.
We must find a way to reach his heart.
Nkem insisted.
King Obina is not an evil man, he is simply misguided. We must show him the error of his ways.
The tension among the elders grew, but Nkem remained resolute. He sought out Amara, who had been released after her punishment but remained steadfast in her faith. Together, they devised a plan to appeal to the king's sense of duty and compassion. One evening, Nkem requested a private audience with King Obina. The king, though suspicious, agreed to meet him. In the dimly lit throne room, Nkem spoke earnestly.
Your Majesty, I beg you to listen to the cries of your people. Our lands are dying, our children are starving. The great Tata has always been our protector. We must honor the old ways, for they are the foundation of our prosperity.
King Obina listened, his face stern and unyielding. Desperate Nkem continued.
Your father, King Obos, understood the balance between tradition and progress. He ruled wisely, and our kingdom flourished. You can lead us to a brighter future, but not by forsaking our heritage.
As Nkem spoke, Amara entered the room, carrying a small bundle of withered crops. She said softly,
These were once the bounty of our land. Look at what we have become. Please, reconsider.
For the first time, King Obina's resolve seemed to waver. He looked at the withered crops, then at Nkem and Amara, and finally at the desperate faces of his people. The weight of his decisions began to press heavily on him. Over the next few days, the kingdom remained in turmoil. The secret meetings of the elders continued, but the division among them only deepened. Chidi's faction grew more impatient, while Nkem's group held fast to the hope of peaceful resolution. Finally, in a last attempt to save the kingdom, Nkem approached the king once more. This time, he brought with him an ancient scroll, a record of their ancestors' wisdom and the bond with Tata.
Your Majesty, please read these words. They are the legacy of our people. They tell of the times when we honored the python and prospered. They tell of the times we strayed and suffered.
King Obinna took the scroll and read the ancient text. As he read, he saw the parallels between the past and their current plight. He saw the wisdom in the traditions he had dismissed. His heart, once hardened by pride, began to soften. Realizing his grave mistake, King Obinna decided to humble himself before the sacred python. He released Amara and gathered the necessary offerings. With Neka and the counselors by his side, he ventured into the mystical forest. The journey to the sacred forest was arduous, filled with trepidation. When they reached Tata's dwelling, the air was thick with an otherworldly presence. King Obinna, with genuine remorse, placed the offerings before the python and knelt in supplication.
Forgive me, great Tata, for my arrogance. I seek to restore the bond that my actions have severed.
The sacred python slowly emerged from the shadows, its two heads glistening in the dappled sunlight. Its eyes, deep and ancient, fixed upon King Obinna. The python's voices, a harmonious blend of power and wisdom, filled the air.
King Obinna, you have strayed far from the path your father walked. You have forsaken the old ways and brought suffering upon your people.
King Obinna bowed his head, tears streaming down his face.
I was blind, great Tata. I sought to lead my people to a new era, but I see now that I was wrong. Please, show mercy upon us. I will honor you and the traditions as my father did.
Neka, the high priestess, stepped forward, her voice calm yet filled with reverence.
Great Tata, the king comes with a sincere heart, seeking forgiveness. Our people have suffered greatly, and we humbly ask for your blessings once more. Guide us back to the path of harmony and prosperity.
The python regarded Neka, its eyes softening.
Neka, faithful priestess, your devotion has been unwavering. You speak for your people with wisdom and sincerity. But words alone are not enough. Actions must follow.
We will renew the rituals and honor you as our ancestors did. We will teach the children of our kingdom the importance of our bond with you.
Tata's two heads swayed in unison, contemplating their words. Finally, the python spoke.
Very well. King Obinna, I will grant your kingdom another chance. But heed my warning, betray our bond again, and the consequences will be severe.
King Obinna bowed deeply, his voice filled with gratitude.
Thank you, great Tata. I will not fail you again. I will lead my people with respect for our traditions and your guidance.
The python's eyes glowed, and a soft, ethereal light surrounded the offerings.
Rise, King Obinna. Go forth and restore your kingdom. The rains will return and your lands will flourish once more. But remember, the balance must be maintained.
As the ritual concluded, the skies above the sacred forest began to clear, and the first drops of rain fell upon the earth. The drought was ending and hope was restored. King Obinna, Neka, and the counselors returned to the kingdom, where they were met with joyous cries. The people of Fiji Kingdom rejoiced as the rain nourished their fields and filled their rivers. The king, now wiser and more humble, reinstated the traditional practices and honored Tata with a grand festival. Peace and prosperity returned to the kingdom, and King Obinna ruled with wisdom and humility, guided by the traditions that had sustained his people for generations. The kingdom flourished once more, and the people lived in harmony with their heritage and the natural world. This story teaches us valuable lessons about humility, respect, and the importance of maintaining a balance between progress and tradition. We should understand that true prosperity comes not from forsaking the past, but from honoring it and allowing it to guide us into the future.